Survivor specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our Survivor David versus Goliath finale predictions. Alexa and I are going to rank the final six. We're going to go through all of the final three breakdowns. We're going to decide who we think the winner of this season is going to be. And we're just going to give you as much detail about this finale as we can possibly give you. So, Alexa.
This is definitely my time to say something. Yes, yeah. That was a pause. I know ranking the final six is always weird because you're ranking for like 3 tribal councils. But I was breaking down who from this jury is going to vote for who. And I don't know about you, but I'm having a hard time like really clearly pinpointing a lot of people, which is good because I think that makes us super up in the air. I don't see a ton of super, super tight ties that people on the jury have to specific people in this final six. So that made it a little difficult for me.
I mean, the only thing for me is I pretty much have Mike and Angelina, everyone's 5 and 6. Almost everyone's. And so because of that, if the two of them were to get in, whoever they're up against would win. That's how I feel based on where I have this. I mean, Mike, I have voting for Angelina 3rd, and I have Angelina voting for Mike 3rd. So there's like one higher. I have Nick with Mike as his second choice. So if Nick were to be on the jury and Mike were to make it, then he would have him higher. But other than that, I really didn't see connections to Mike. And then Angelina, I feel like is your 0 vote getter. So when I look at who's going to get the votes, if anybody were to sit next to them, they would win. And I'm thinking that they would win 9-1 or 10-0 or 8-2, something like that. Like it would be a blowout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a similar breakdown for Angelina as well. But you were saying last week that you were thinking that, I guess when it came to certain final threes, which we'll get to in a little bit, but you said that you thought there'd be a lot of like people getting kind of split votes here rather than having a unanimous vote.
Well, if it's not Mike and Angelina, for anything else, I have it a lot different. But if the two of them are in there, then I feel like it's going to be a blowout because Angelina, just from last week, hearing what Angelina how she was like begging and how Davey still didn't take her, I think that says a lot about how she's being viewed in this game. And if that was really just meant to be a move that people were supposed to pay you back later, like I don't see that happening. And then Mike, I feel like Mike's played a pretty good game, but I don't think anybody's going to really respect it because I don't think that he's shown enough of his game. And last week was a big Mike move. Telling Nick that he was in trouble and getting Nick to play the idol. That was really great. But aside from that, I don't really know.
I don't know. I was about to say, I think I've warmed up on Mike, and that's not personally. That's more how many votes I think he's going to get. I think after reading a lot of Christian's exit press, the kind of the big thing that came out was that he and Mike in the middle of the night, every night since the merge, it sounds like they sat up all night and just chatted mostly about life, but a little bit about strategy. And Mike was gunning for Christian the whole time. So there was like a really deep personal connection there. And if we have learned nothing from the Ponderosa video, other than the fact that Christian is like literally teaching them about the history of Survivor, I think whether or not he wants this position, he is going to be the one that people probably follow into battle when it comes with who they're going to vote for. And I think Christian has a lot of respect for Mike. So I think we could see a couple votes go Mike's way, especially sitting next to Angelina or possibly like a Kara or an Allison.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Kara and Allison are viewed by the jury because we haven't seen a lot of, like last week was the first time we heard somebody say Kara is my friend, which was Davey saying she's my friend. And so by him saying that, to me, that means that if Kara were to sit at final 3, that's Davey's number 1 because Nick, he called a friend of me and he called Kara a friend. So I think that that's Davey's number 1 if she's at final 3. Is she still Dan's number 1? I don't know, but I don't know who else Dan would vote for. He's definitely not voting for Angelina. So what would he do in that situation? And so Alice and I have a hard time, Gabby, we know, has a good relationship with her, but does John? I don't know. And how do the rest of these 5 feel other than thinking that she's a huge threat? We had Mike say last week she's really easy to beat, so that makes me think that she's Mike's last choice to pick to win in any situation. So that's where I sit at with all of this.
Let's go into these different final threes because we've been talking like Dan's a tough one because I think you're right about the Angelina, he won't vote for her, but I don't see him voting for Kara. So let's get into it. I know you know this format better than I do when it comes to this predictions podcast.
Well, it's really hard because it was easier when there was 5 people because you could normally rule out like this final 3 is never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I would say that the unlikely final 3s are any variation of Kara, Allison, Mike, Angelina without Nick or Davey in there. I feel like Nick or Davey, one of them is going to be in there, maybe Kara, but I would be really shocked if Allison, Mike, Angelina is the final 3 of the season.
So yeah, you're right, because I think Mike and Angelina don't want any part of them. However, I'm just thinking, like, why would you bring a David to the end? Like,
you might not have a choice.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So like, I think you have to put Nick or Davey in the fire making situation, which, as we've seen, we have a very small sample size, but the person who wins the fire making challenge does pretty well for themselves in the end. Yeah. So you almost, God, I hate this fire making challenge so much. You put someone in a position to become a hero, and the person that they're going to put in that situation is already seen as a quote unquote hero because they're the Davids, and both of them have an amazing story. So you're right. That Allison or Kara would just have to win the fire making challenge to win the game, when I don't know, they'd have to beat out Nick or Davey.
Yeah, and I have a really hard time seeing, like, maybe the first vote is Nick or Davey. Maybe one of them go home. But I feel like the other one's going to somehow get through the final 5 to get to the fire-making challenge. Based on what we've seen, I feel like one of them has to be there. And maybe it's Kara, but an Allison, Mike, Angelina final 3 would be shocking. Kara, Allison, Mike, Kara, Allison, Angelina, something like that. That just seems like it's too out of the realm of possibility. Like, it seems all over the place that would happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, this Mike and Angelina final 3 just seems to be the clearest, and that's probably because Mike and Angelina, out of this group, they're really the only people who have talked about who their final 3 is, at least to the viewer. I don't know who Kara wants to sit with. I don't know who Allison wants to sit with. Nick, I think, wants to sit with them, and Davey doesn't seem interested at all. So who's Davey's ideal final 3? It sounds like maybe he wants to be with Kara, but I can't imagine Allison is in anyone's final 3 plans.
Yeah, I don't think Allison is, but I would say that. Well, I think Allison's in Mike's final 3 plans, because I think Mike thinks he can beat Allison. So I think that's the one person who he says, I want to sit next to Angelina and Allison, and I can pull this off. Because he said last time Allison's an easy win, and he knows he can beat Angelina. So I think that's Mike's ideal final 3. But
wait, he said Allison's an easy win, so he wouldn't want to sit next to her. Right?
He's an easy person to beat. Nobody, like he said something along the lines of Allison is easy to beat in the end, or is no threat in the end, or something. It was something along those lines. So she's the only one, though. I think Mike's the only one who really wants to take her. I mean, Davey might have plans to take Kara as far as he can, but then try to cut her loose at final 4 and have her lose the fire making challenge. Because I really do think that if you're sitting there if you're in the game, you know how Angelina's coming across, you know how the jury views Angelina. So you definitely want her there. I mean, Dan is going to fight so hard for her to not get a single vote. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of these players respect really hard gameplay, and not saying that Angelina didn't play hard. It's just that she's been, like, not real with a lot of her gameplay. And I think that's where she's going to fall into a problem, is everybody's going to be like, you didn't do that. Like, you weren't as sly as you thought. Like, Elizabeth, never going to vote for Angelina because she comes to Elizabeth and says this, that, and the other thing. Like, yeah, I'm dumb. I know you're sending me to the jury. There's no way I'm going to turn around and now vote for you to win. So I think that, she's somebody you definitely want to sit next to. And then I guess Mike is really the other one, because he has so much money and because he's definitely not that close with anybody else. Like, nobody else is super close with Mike. So I feel like, though, it's a fight to try to sit with those two. It's just a matter of, can you actually make that happen? Because this final fire making challenge makes it really hard to choose your second and third place.
Mm-hmm. I think I know this is a very undeveloped hypothesis I'm about to say, but I feel like there are 2 ways that a jury member votes. You either vote based on your relationship with someone, like you just said. Mike and Angelina don't really have a relationship with anyone except for each other. I think if Mike's on the jury and Angelina's up there, I think Mike would vote for Angelina, and I think vice versa. But I think that's the only situation where that happens. And then the other one is someone like John. I don't know who in this final 6 John has any form of personal relationship to. Actually, he and Angelina, now that I'm saying this out loud, they had, like, an alliance going, and I think he did like her, despite everyone else seeming to not. But I see John as someone who will actually look at this game holistically, listen to their arguments, and really make his vote based on the overall game. And it's not to say that the first option is biased, but it's just, are you going to vote socially or are you going to vote strategically? Just like that, there are different ways to win. And I think I see a lot of these people voting strategically just because there isn't that connection with many people. Obviously, if Davey's in the final three or Nick's in the final three, I think Carl is a shoo-in vote for one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think that Angelina, I know you brought up the thing with John, and I had a really hard time. John was the one I had the hardest time ranking the people for. But at the same time, he had that connection with Angelina, but he's a lot closer with Dan. Dan hates Angelina. So I feel like John's not going to sit there and vote for Angelina, because also Angelina, I think John saw through a lot of Angelina, and Angelina was like, I'm, the puppet master, and John's just at my whim. And I don't think John wants to be seen that way. So I don't think that he will vote for her. Maybe, but I don't see it happening. Maybe it's actually easier if we just go down the list of the jury members and this final six and talk about in the order that we think that they'll vote. And then we can kind of put that into, so in any situation, Kara would get 5 votes if she makes it to the final, so we can put it into that situation to kind of make it easier, because trying to break it into final threes, especially in a season like this, I feel like there's a lot of variations that are worth talking about, unlike last season where really anything with Wendell or Dom, they won.
Yeah.
This season, I think that there's a lot of variations worth talking about. So maybe I think we should just run it down that way and see what we come up with.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'll start off, because I don't know if you actually listed out this way. I'm kind of throwing this at you, but
I did, but this is fun.
Yeah, so I think this will be easy. So we start off with Elizabeth. And so when I look at Elizabeth, I'm just ranking these people from 1 to 6 in order of who I think she votes for. I think she votes for Kara first. And it was at the first vote, Kara wasn't in on it, and then Elizabeth was talking about needing to vote Kara out. But I think that she had the most in common with Kara. I don't think that she just votes for Nick or Davey because of the ties that they had. I know she worked with Davey at one point, but then Davey had no problem turning around and voting her out. They didn't work together with the Jessica boot. Davey and Carl were left on the outside of that. So I think that she votes for Nick over Davey. And then I think Allison, Mike, Angelina, I think those are her clear bottom 3, because I don't think we ever saw her talk to any of them aside from Angelina, when Angelina was like, hey, I'm looking to help you. And Elizabeth was like, I'm going to blow you up at tribal council.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would switch Nick and Kara. I think Elizabeth would vote for Nick. I forgot that they had an alliance until someone corrected us in our in the comments, but she and Nick had that Thoroughbreds name. I hope Nick brings up all of his names, assuming he gets to the final 3. So, and I think Nick obviously wasn't a part of that Elizabeth and Carl spat that they had on whatever tribe they were on together. I'm forgetting the name. So that's why kind of like what you said, Davey's a little lower for me. So I'd go with Nick at number 1. Kara, I think, is her second option. I agree with you. I think that relationship with Kara was very real, and I think Kara would think that as well. The only reason I'm a little unsure about it is because past that, we really didn't see anything. And when Elizabeth was going home, Kara really wasn't anywhere to be seen. So that makes me a little nervous. I think Elizabeth is going to vote more relationship based. She's also been watching this kind of from the beginning. So she's had a much longer period. Her experience on the jury is significantly different from Christian's. So I don't know how that affects voting, but that's something I would like to explore more, the first jury member versus the last jury member, kind of how they go about voting. But anyway, so I'd go Nick, Kara, Gap, and then Allison and Davey. I'd kind of slash them right next to each other, and then Mike, and then Angelina is definitely last.
Yeah, and the Kara Nick thing is interesting because, like you said, she'd probably vote more relationship based. So was her relationship better with Kara or was it better with Nick? Because she was voting strategy based, then Nick gets the vote, I think, easily. But if she's voting relationship based, was her relationship with Kara better than her relationship ever was with Nick? Because we saw them early on have their thoroughbred alliance, and then that never came up again. That was never important again. Elizabeth was an easy boot. So who does Elizabeth feel like she bonded the most with? And I know she was like, was it her who said Kara just has to go next or something like that when after they had voted out Natalia? She said we just have to vote out Kara next. But who is she going to feel more in line with? And you're probably right. She probably does vote for Nick before Kara. Now that we're actually talking it out loud, so I think that's a toss up, and maybe if we go to try to break one of these down, and it's Nick versus Kara, and we say okay, it's coming down to this one vote, and Elizabeth vote is the one. We could maybe try to flop it around, but I don't think that it's going to come down to that close of a vote. Although I do have Kara as people's number ones a lot more than I have Nick as people number ones. But I feel like Nick gets to the final three a lot easier than Kara gets to the final three. Or not easier, but more likely based on what we've seen.
Yeah, he's got more of a path to it. I don't really know what to do with Nick because I think I'm just so blinded by last episode because that was obviously a pretty tough episode for him. And like you said, I mean, I'm stopping us here. Like we'll go through each jury member, but really none of them have much of a tie to Nick. So let's segue that into John. Like, did John and Nick ever speak?
No, but I don't know what John would do. So what I went
John,
with,
I'm a question mark with him.
So I said he would go Allison first, because we saw him and Allison do stuff. They were on the same tribe for a lot of days.
Mm-hmm.
They did stuff together. But if he's going to do the out of the respect thing, because they got him, Nick would have to be his first one. It would have to be Nick or Davey, right? Because it was Nick, Davey, and Christian who voted out John. So, right, it was the three of them who made the vote for John.
Yep,
Carl wasn't in on it,
right.
Gabby didn't do it. So,
yeah, and he liked that move. Like he was a good sport about it.
Yeah, so while I had the hardest time with John, I think that Allison's who he played the longest with, so he'd go with her. And then I think it'd be Nick or Davey and then Kara. And I think he'd go Nick first, then Davey, because I think he's more I don't know. I think that the jury likes Davey a lot, but I think that they might be talking about Nick as more of the mastermind, which if that's the case, then Nick probably gets more votes at the end. And I don't see Nick and Davey both making it to final tribal, so I don't think it'll be an issue where I have one or the other. If I have them side by side, I don't see the two of them both sitting at the final tribal because how the hell did they pull that off? So I think it goes Aaron, Mike and Angelina again at the bottom because despite him having a relationship with Angelina, maybe Angelina and Mike could flip here. But I think that he saw through the Angelina stuff. I think he got kind of annoyed that Angelina thought that she was the puppet master, and I think that makes it hard for him to vote for her, especially now he's been out of the game so long and he's been sitting there watching every tribal council, what people are saying about each other. And I'm sure people have to be rolling their eyes about the Rice thing and stuff like that because nobody's really taking it all that seriously as great gameplay.
I think you're right, but I'm going to switch Mike and Angelina just because I can't even think of a time when John and Mike talked other than the premiere. And my only thing with the Angelina is I think she only told us. I don't know if she's ever used the word puppet master. I know I'm really like misquoting you, but I think like she really only spoke to us like, oh yeah, I got John. But John, I remember, I think it was right before the Elizabeth booth, John was like, oh, I'll calm Angelina down. Like I got her. So I think their relationship was good. I think you're right. He, again, was on the jury for a really long time. So he's watched her kind of devolve, but he also doesn't seem like someone who takes anything personally. So, or like gets insulted easily. So I could see him having some form of sympathy for her. I don't know if he'll vote for her, but I'll put Mike at the bottom just to be contrarian. And then I'll go Mike 6, Angelina 5, probably Kara 4. And then Nick and Davey, I'll kind of slash them next to each other. But I'll put them above Allison. I think Nick and Davey are kind of tied at the top, and then I'll put Allison down. I think you're right. I think he and Allison actually do have a really tight relationship. I think we didn't see that. But I don't know what Allison's going to say at the end.
Yeah. Well, and I think you brought up a good point where John doesn't take it too personally. He's an athlete. He's a competitor. And I think he wants the best person to win. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that he's at that point where it's like, you know what? I'll vote for the person I think made the best move or the one I respected the most, which I think does come down to either Nick or Davey over Allison.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think he does have that relationship with Allison, but if I'm going to siphon each jury member off, I see John voting holistically rather than relationship based.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of someone who I think is going to votes personally based.
Yeah, this Dan one was tough too because the best relationship that he has with any of these final 6 was Kara.
But I think I don't think at this point in the game, I don't think he's pro Kara.
I know, but that's the crazy thing is that's really the only relationship we saw him have with any of these final 6 was the Brochachos and Kara.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll put Allison at the top for Dan because they played together for a while, so I guess they've got that going for them. I mean, we really only saw Allison feeling left out of the Brochachos, so I don't really know what their relationship is, but I'm gonna give them that just because they seem to have some form of friendship. Mike, I have a hard time seeing people vote for Mike because of his money, and I think that's something that clearly hasn't been a factor yet. But at the end of the day, you vote for who you want to vote for, and I think people are going to be very blinded by the fact that he's already like a multi-millionaire.
Well, and the other thing with Mike is too, like, what has who's he built a really great relationship with?
Not Dan.
Yeah, not really any of the people on the jury. I mean, Nick, if Nick's on the jury, then that's an easy, he's voting for Mike and Mike's voting for Nick. I think, well, although Nick now, after getting burned last week, I think is really hurt about that.
Yeah, and I think Nick would be that kind of jury member. I think Nick would vote for Davey if he's there. Yeah. Does Nick have a relationship with Kara? Okay, not really. But I guess going back to Dan, I'll put Allison pretty high up for Dan. And then I'll go Allison 1, Nick 2, Davey 3, Mike 4, Kara 5, Angelina 6.
See, I think he forgives Kara, and if Kara gets there, he votes for Kara. I think that Dan's one of those guys. I think Dan's blinded by the pretty girls, and I just think that's how he is. And I think that if he sees the chance to be like, you know what, I forgive Kara, and she bats her eyelash at him, I think that he votes for her. I really do. So I think I actually have Kara 1, Allison 2, Nick 3, Davey 4, Mike 5, and then Angelina 6.
Yeah, I could see that. I think other people, if people want Kara to win, they'll be able to convince him. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on whether or not Kara gets there. This is a big side cut, and we can talk about this after we're done going through this. But Mike is a multimillionaire. Allison is about to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I don't know where she was in the show at that point. Kara is, I think, co-owners, or she is a part of a very successful real estate group. Yeah. I don't actually know what Angelina does, but I forget. I was meant to look it up, but I completely forgot. I'm sure what Angelina does is she's extremely successful at it. Nick is a lawyer, and Davey's an internet star. So if I'm up there and I'm voting based on that, I vote for Davey every single time. And like you said, I think they all like him. I think they think he's funny. And I think he and Nick kind of have a extreme comparison here. Dom and Wendell kind of relationship where every time Nick has done something really cool, Davey has done it the next episode. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think too, if you look at this final 4 or this final 6, I think that the 4 Goliaths left is Mike's dream. I think it's Mike's dream. And I don't necessarily think that means that he gets the votes, but a lot can change in this finale. And for instance, we're making the guesses right now based on who's going to vote for who. And obviously last year, if I would have known that Wendell was going to give his idol to Laurel and do that, maybe my mind would have changed. But I'm doing it just based on what we've seen up to the final 6. So when I look over here and I see this list, Mike is loving that Kara's a multimillionaire, that Allison is known to be a doctor, and that Angelina is just not everyone's best friend. Because he's looking at this final 4 saying, if I can get all of the Goliaths there, I can win this game if I get to the final 3 against any of them. And so right now, while I have Mike very, very low in everybody's rankings, he could be the one who goes on a little bit of a run here or makes some moves that are really impressive in this finale to get to the final 4 with all Goliaths, to get to the final 3 with, Angelina and then a combination of either Kara or Allison. And I think Mike can really pull it out. Now, am I going to sit here and say that right now, going into the final 6, Mike would get more than 2 votes at any given tribal council? No, I really don't believe that. But a lot can change because him and Allison and Angelina and Kara, in my opinion, aren't that far apart from each other. None of them have played so much overwhelmingly better of a game than the other that it would take away that you can't make the move. I don't know if anybody can go ahead of Nick. I don't know if anybody can go ahead of Davey. I think if one of those 2 sits against you, they're probably going to beat you unless somehow they split the votes. But I don't see the two of them sitting next to each other. I just think that would be impossible for that to happen. But if one of those two is there, they're going to win. But the other four, this is their time to make the move and pull out the victory.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. We're so handicapped because at the moment we're working with 3 less jury members than what's actually going to be. And like you said, 6 months ago, we were doing these predictions with, and I think I had Dom winning, which like obviously almost happened, but Dom lost the season in the finale.
Yeah.
All the people he put on the jury at the end didn't end up voting for him. So you're right. We have Kara could go on some psycho run and then end up sweeping the jury. We just haven't seen it yet. And it could be a Michelle Fitzgerald very late, but like coming in hot kind of win.
Well, and another one, look at Brad Culpepper doing what he did. You know, if Brad Culpepper doesn't do what he did to Ty, Brad very well could be your winner of Survivor Game Changers. Not necessarily against Sarah, but he got so cocky.
Yeah.
He was so adamant about Ty going home. You know, so yeah, it can be won or lost in this finale. But let's go to Alec. He's another one I had a really hard time with because the person we saw him going to the most was Christian. And that was kind of his in. And then he was part of that group of 6, which was Nick and Christian and Gabby and Allison. And was it Mike? It was Mike, I think. It was that strike force, which never took place.
The strike force that never happened.
But I actually put Kara as his number 1, and this has nothing to do with everything that came out beforehand. I just don't think that he has that good of a relationship with anyone else. And I think him and Kara played for a long time together. Yes, he blindsided Kara once, but I think that was water under the bridge. And I think that what ends up happening is, you know, Kara came to him, right, on his boot day and said, like, this is what's happening. And he was like, I don't want to just be that guy. And he's trying to make the move. So I think that he respects Kara the most there, votes for her if she's there. Then I think he gets in a game plan, goes to either Nick or Davey, then Allison, then Mike, and then Angelina again at the bottom, because I just don't see any situation where Alec gives it to either Mike or Angelina, because neither one of them did any.
Okay, you're cut back. I think I lost you for a sec, but this is a good one. I really differ with you on this. I have Allison at a very clear number 1 because I think he and Allison are super tight, and a lot of this is based on like a little bit of exit stuff, a little bit of like they gave each other the hang 10 after Allison survived like her third attempt at going home in a row. So I think he and Allison have had a very, very strong relationship. Kara is a very close number 2. I think you're right. I think he like I forget like the Natalia vote. I think that is significantly under the bridge. That was so long ago. And then I go with Davey at number 3. I think he and Davey were like relatively close when they were on the tribe together. So I think he could definitely vote for Davey. And then I go Nick, Mike, Angelina. I can't recall an Alec and Nick relationship very much.
Am I misremembering? Was it Allison who told him that he was going home? And not Kara? Am I misremembering?
I have no recollection. I would believe you if you told me either.
Because if it was Allison, then I just completely misremembered and should have said Allison was the one who was going to get his vote at the end. Because for some reason, I'm imagining it as Kara, but maybe I'm wrong.
It could have been Kara. I think he's really tight with both of them. Because those were the 3, Alec, Kara, and Allison were the 3 that kept almost jumping to the David. So there's a really strong relationship between those 3. We probably just never got to dive that far into it because they never really did anything with it.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting if there's a final 3 here where it's Nick, Kara, and Angelina, Nick, Kara, and Mike, Nick, Kara, and Allison, like that could be a really interesting final 3 because I have Kara as a lot of people's number 1. Allison as a lot of people's number 1. But in my opinion, Nick played the clearly better game. So what is the jury thinking about these people? And, right now, as I look at this, we've said Kara and Allison number 1. We said what? Kara, Allison 1, 2 for Dan and Alec. And then we said Kara and Allison as like the 1 or 2, depending on if they want Nick ahead of them for Elizabeth and John. So as of right now, like we don't have Nick as a clear front runner for any of this. But then when we start to actually get into the Carl, Christian, and the other people who are still in this finale, I think that's where there starts to become some separation.
Yeah. Let's go to Gavin and Christian. I don't know what to do. Let's go to Carl. Let's move on to him. What do you think?
Well, Carl, I think, is an easy Davey. If Davey's there, he votes for Davey 100 times out of 100. Then I think it would be Nick, because I do think that him and Nick started to, work together a little bit. And I know the blind side. I think Carl doesn't really hold too much of a grudge for the blind side that happened to him, which Nick wasn't even a part of, right? Nick actually voted.
No, that was a Gabby and Christian move.
It was Gabby, Christian, and then the 3 Goliaths. And then I think he goes Kara, and then Allison, and then Mike, and then Angelina. But again, we don't really know his relationship with all of them after Davey and Nick. So I think that he's a clear Davey or Nick if they're sitting there. Like, no questions about it, especially Davey. I think him and Davey have been friends since day one.
Yeah, I'm on the pretty much exact same page of that. I go Davey, Nick, gigantic gap, and then I guess Kara because he played with her a little longer, right? No, he didn't. No, he wasn't on the tribe with her.
No, he was, because he joined the tribe after Natalia got voted off.
Oh, right, he joined that tribe. Okay, so yeah, I think Kara is a far number 3, and then Allison. I feel like I never saw them talk. Mike, and then Mike and Angelina.
Yeah, it's so funny doing this Mike and Angelina thing. I think it's.
I know. I feel bad.
I mean, you feel bad, but at the same time, like,
it's not my personal feelings.
Mike could get the votes. I don't see Angelina getting any. I really don't, unless Mike's on the jury. That's the only vote I see her getting. Just straight up. Gabby, I think Allison is her number 1. Pretty clear, because they actually talked about that relationship a lot. Yeah. I think Davey would be her number 2. Or not Davey. I'm sorry. Nick would be her number 2, because Nick, her and Nick tried to work together to get rid of Christian, and Davey was the one who went and told Christian, and then that's why he plays the idol. And I think that all comes out once you're at the jury. Christian probably tells Gabby, it was Davey who told me. And either Gabby respects the hell out of that move, or she's like, screw that. Davey blew up my game, so I'm going to vote for Nick. And then I think Kara falls in between Nick and Davey, and then I think it's Mike and Angelina again at the bottom, because when did Gabby ever talk to Angelina? And her and Mike, they were in the strike force for 4 seconds.
For a whopping 4 seconds. I agree with you on Allison. I think Allison's a big number 1. I actually go Kara at number 2. I think that relationship, that there was more to that, which we just never really explored because they didn't really play together. But I think Kara is just kind of a lesser Allison. I think they wanted to play together, and I think they really liked each other, and the stars never aligned. And then I would go Davey 3, Nick 4, Mike 5, Angelina 6. Just because I'm trying to remember Gabby's boot episode. Like they ended up splitting the votes on that, which is like why Gabby ended up going home. I feel like Christian was like, oh yeah, I'm super down. Or excuse me, Nick was like, I'm super down to get rid of Christian. I don't care who's telling me. I'm just into that. So I don't see a super strong relationship there. And Nick, let me get this right.
There's also the feeling that it could come out that Nick was the one who said, yeah, let's vote for Gabby.
Yeah, which he did.
Yeah.
So I mean, Gabby does not seem to be the bitter type at all. I think she's having a grand old time at Ponderosa. But I just I don't see much of a tie with each other. And I think Nick was really mad when Gabby and Christian flipped on Carl. So I don't know, obviously Nick doesn't need to pitch, or Gabby doesn't need to pitch herself to Nick, but I don't know. I don't see much of a tie there.
Yeah. And then when we go to Christian, I think here's another one. Davey is so far and away the number 1. I think that him and Davey, Davey's come to him to save him a couple times. They tried to work together to make some moves happen here down the stretch. And then I do think this is a person where what happens at the jury could really influence him. Because right now he might be a little bummed at Nick because Nick's taking it really personally and lied to him and all that. But they were gunning for each other. And I think that he eventually, if Nick makes a good, compelling argument, he would vote for Nick to win, because I think Christian's just one of those people. He's not going to be bitter, and he'd rather see the best person win. And then I don't know why I have this, but I have Mike, Allison, Kara, Angelina. I feel like I just have Mike higher, and I know Mike's
Mike at number 2.
Yeah, because I know Mike's been gunning for Christian the entire time, but at the same time, him and Christian at least spoke to each other. Allison and Christian never really talked, because it was Christian with the brochachos and Gabby, and Allison was the clear number 5. And then what did him and Kara ever say to each other? I don't know if we ever saw them.
No, I don't think we really did. Yeah, I'm with you. I go Davey at number 1, Mike 2. I would actually go Nick 3, and then Allison, because Christian and Allison never really had their relationship. Gabby was really the bridge there. The reason I'm pretty up in the air with Christian is I think he's really not going to pay or vote relationship based. Even though he has relationships with these people, I don't envision him voting that way. So I think as quote unquote indebted he is to Davey, he's on the jury. He's not playing anymore. If he and Davey were sitting next to each other at the final three, that's a different conversation. But I think Christian is really going to look at like who would represent this season well, who would make the most sense. And I think Davey would make the most sense. But I don't know. I just really don't see Christian taking his relationships into account. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, I could see that. But I still, I think Davey and Nick and, I think they make the most sense to him. I still think that. So then if we go into the 6 who are actually left in the game, assuming that they get sent to the jury. So if Nick gets sent to the jury, I think he goes Davey actually first before he votes Mike. Because I think right now he's pissed at Mike because Mike just got him to play the idol. So if Nick goes home, it's probably going to be because he didn't have his idol to save him. So if Nick were to go home at 6, I think he votes Davey first. But I think that if he doesn't go home at 6, and if Mike's sitting there with Angelina, Allison, or Kara, because if Davey's not there, I think he votes Mike. I think he still feels the most towards Mike. They were the rock stars. They did do a lot together. Maybe he feels a little betrayed, but I think you can make things work out. And then I think that he probably goes, and I really don't have a reason for this, but then I have Allison, Kara, Angelina, and again, who was he close with out of Allison, Kara, and Angelina? Like
he wanted Allison gone the whole time.
He wanted her gone the whole time, and that's why I have her at 3 because I almost feel like if she gets there, he respects it. And then 4, I have Kara just because Angelina's at the bottom.
Yeah. So did you go Davey, Mike, Allison, Kara, Angelina?
I went Davey, Mike, Allison, Kara, Angelina. Yep.
Okay. I guess I agree with that. I don't know. I'm not really sold on Nick and Mike because, like you said, like he's probably gonna be pretty pissed at Mike. But for a while, he wasn't voting with Mike. Like for a while, he and Mike were very separate, and I feel like their relationship is like really only comes into effect like when it strongly benefits one of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, because I just remember like for a while, Nick wouldn't vote with him. And then he was like, oh yeah, now we'll bring the rock stars back together. And I was like, you're saying that just because you need him. So I don't really know what their relationship is going to be like, but I think you're right. Davey is definitely a buy and away number 1.
Yeah. And then when I go to Davey, I have Kara as his number 1 because he called her a friend last week. Mm-hmm. And then I have Nick as his number 2. And then I go Allison, Mike, Angelina. And the reason for that is Davey's been really all over the place. Like, I don't know who he feels close with other than him calling Kara a friend last week. That's what I'm basing this off of. So that's why I go Kara, Nick, Allison, Mike, Angelina.
I think you're right. The only thing I'd maybe switch is Kara and Nick because I don't really know where Davey stands on that because like Davey and Nick they have an alliance name that has not been put on TV. They've had like a thing going for a really long time. And even though Davey would always kind of subvert Nick and then move over to Christian, I think he and Nick, I mean, they worked together. They made so many great moves at the beginning of this merge together. And that was a super mutually beneficial relationship. So I just don't like, does Davey vote based, strategically or socially? I can't tell because I think if he votes socially, he goes for Kara. And that's a relationship I really wish we saw more of. And I think if he votes strategically, he will vote for Nick because I think he likes Nick. And I think he really respects the game that Nick's playing. I think he just knows he needs to get rid of him.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then Kara, once again, I did Davey because I heard the word friend. And then I have Allison, Nick, Mike, Angelina. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe she votes for Mike before she votes for Nick. Maybe I have Mike too low for her here, but they've done some votes together, but I don't know.
This is who Kara's going to vote for?
Yeah.
I'm slashing Allison and Davey next to each other. I think Kara and Allison at this point are kind of just stuck with each other. And but I think it's kind of worked out. I think they actually do have a relationship that, again, we really didn't see much of. And I'm trying to think, did she ever pick Davey to go on a reward with her? Or did she and Davey just kind of end up on things together? I think they've just ended up together a lot, which obviously is going to further their relationship. So between Davey and Allison, I really don't know. And then, I'm trying to like come up with a reason to not put Mike or Angelina at the bottom because I feel like it's getting to the point where it's just like we're putting them there, but I can't come up with any reason for them to not put them there.
Well, that's exactly what the problem for me was. Every time that I did somebody, I was like, okay, there's Mike and Angelina are at the bottom. Like, it just feels like that's what's going to happen every time.
Yeah. So I guess I go Allison, Davey, Nick, Mike, Angelina for Kara.
Okay. And then Allison, if she were to get on the jury, I have her voting Kara first. And then I don't know. It's either Davey, Nick, or Mike, and then Angelina's at the bottom again. I mean, I really have no idea with Allison, though, because, like, is she going to vote for best gameplay? Is she going to vote for, her and Mike have played for a little while together, or like they've, Nick's been gunning for her, so maybe she doesn't want to vote for him. I really have no idea with Allison. I just think Kara's a number one.
I see Allison kind of the way I see John. I see her voting very broadly. Like, I see her voting for the best gameplay. So even though she and Nick don't have a relationship, I think she'll look at Nick and Davey. She doesn't have a relationship with Davey either from what we've seen. I think she would vote for Nick and Davey. I don't think she's super Goliath strong. I don't think she has much of her. I mean, all we see is her laughing at Angelina. Like, she has been like the number one like anti-Angelina person there. So obviously she wouldn't vote for Angelina. Mike, I don't know. I think they just kind of closed their eyes and voted together. Kara's, I think like Kara's her friend, kind of like what I was just saying, but I would still put Nick or Davey above her because I think Allison always had this affinity for the Davids because I think she always wanted to work with them. And even though Nick and Davey aren't specifically who she wanted to work with, I really see she's a very smart and very logical person. I see her voting for who she thinks played the best game. I think she would keep it pretty simple like that.
Yeah. And then if Mike were to get there, I think he votes Nick first, rock stars, all that fun stuff. And then Angelina, Davey, Kara, Allison. I have Allison at the bottom because he said that she's not hard to beat. So I think that he has like no respect for the game Allison's playing. I think that he does vote for Angelina. Maybe, you know what? I have Davey ahead of Angelina. I go Nick, Davey, Angelina, Kara, Allison. Because I still think that if one of the guys is there, he ends up voting for them. But I think that he would vote for Angelina because the two of them really have worked together pretty much the entire post-merge, which is insane.
I'm going to put Angelina number one. I'm going to throw her a bone here. He chose her for the reward. Like he chose her for the family reward. And that is something that a lot of people do not take lightly. And so I think that relationship's there. We have really we've seen Mike call her annoying, but he clearly likes her. There's clearly a very, very close relationship there. So I'll put Angelina 1. I'll go Nick 2. And then Davey, Kara, Allison, like you said. I missed that Allison quote. I got to rewatch it.
Yeah. And then with Angelina, I actually have her voting for the girls first. So I have Kara, Allison, then Mike, Nick, Davey. I think that if a woman is there, Angelina votes for a woman to win this game. I just think that's a lot of her story has been based around that. Early on, she's talking about women don't find idols as much and all of that. And I think that she does vote for a woman if she has the opportunity to vote for a woman.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I don't know. I don't know why I don't know why Davey is jumping to me, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I would go Allison, Kara, Davey. No, wait. No. I'm going to go Mike 1. What am I saying? Mike, she's going to vote for Mike. And then if that doesn't happen, she'll vote for Allison, Kara, Davey, and then Nick.
Yeah, see, I just think that she votes for a woman at the end if there's one sitting there. I just think that's her. So if we're looking at this, instead of breaking down who would win in each of these scenarios, because we just told you who we think the order is. What's your like prediction for this entire final 6? Like, give us the fan fiction of what you think is going to happen, and I'll give mine, and then we can discuss that and we can figure it out.
I think Nick catches wind of Davey not being super into that final 3, final 4 idea, the jabroni final 4. And I think Nick also looks at Davey and he's like, I have to be the only David left. Because we talked about that earlier. You can't have 2 Davids floating around. And I think I think Davey's going to go home number 6, mostly because I think Nick has more clout with that group. Like, Davey could go to Kara, who could go to Allison, but then I think it's a 3-3 tie. While I think Nick obviously has Mike and Angelina's vote, and he could go to Allison and Kara and say Davey's a gigantic threat, because I think everyone would agree that Davey's a threat. And Nick won't seem as threatening because he had that huge blunder last week. So I think Davey goes at number 5. And then, excuse me, number 6. Let me cross that out. Then they probably get rid of Allison, because I think that's at the point where like Allison seems like this gigantic threat. No one has called Kara a threat. Everyone has called Allison a threat. Her name's been thrown around God knows how many times. So I think Alice goes home unanimously, number 5. And then I think your fire making challenge is between, I'm going to say Mike wins the final immunity challenge.
Mm-hmm. Takes
Angelina. Nick and Kara fire make. And then I don't know who makes a better fire there. That's a total toss up. But I think whoever makes that fire wins the game. So either Kara wins or Nick wins.
Okay, so either Kara. Well, make your prediction here. Let's hear your final prediction.
Okay. Well, I don't want it to be the same as yours. I don't know what yours is, but I'm gonna make it.
You don't even know what mine is.
I don't know. The conspiracy
Remember last year you were wrong.
Kara wins, but the person who's we just talked this through. Like Nick doesn't have. Nick's gonna win. That's it. I'm done. Nick wins. Okay. Kara loses the fire making challenge. The conspiracy theorist in me really wants Kara to win because this whole thing is all tied up then. But I think Nick wipes the floor with Mike and Angelina.
Yeah, so what I think is I think Davey goes home at 6. I think Nick has better relationships. I think that, somebody wins immunity and they say, Davey's a bigger threat on the jury than Nick is. Nick's really mad right now. Let's get rid of Davey. So I think Davey goes home at 6 because you can't have Nick and Davey both running around. I think Nick wins the final 5 immunity challenge. And I think Kara actually goes home there. I think Allison makes it to final 4 because we saw that little clip of her making a fire.
You're right there.
She loses to Nick, and she has a very similar edit to Angela. She has a very similar edit to Devin, where wasn't that big, and then all of a sudden it started to pick up. Mm-hmm. And that's how, if you go back and look at Devin's confessionals, if you look at Angela's confessionals, not many. So the people who've lost this fire-making challenge have been near the bottom. Devin's probably got way higher because once they hit the merge, he went up. But early on in that game, I thought Devin was going home when Patrick went home. Mm. So when I look at this, I have Allison losing fire to Nick. I agree with you. Mike's going to win the last immunity. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Angel immunity takes Mike with her, thinking she can beat Mike easier than she can beat the others. Mm-hmm. And I think Nick wins, and then I think Nick wins in final. I think it's going to be 9-1-0 because I think somebody's going to throw Mike a vote so that Mike gets second, or somebody's going to throw Angelina a vote so that Angelina gets second. But I have Nick winning, Mike second, and Angelina third.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I think Kara and Allison, you can definitely flip them around in terms of like who's the 5th person out versus who does the fire. I think it just comes down to Mike and Angelina are such a tight 2, and everyone else is really up in the air. And so I think that really benefits them. And if they get to the end, good for them.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, if Davey were to win immunity at final 6, I think Nick goes home. I think that unless he has an idol, unless they can dig up. Look, I think this is still going to be a crazy finale. We've seen these finales have gotten much more action-packed. There's been so much in them. People finding idols, people finding advantages, people winning, going on runs that you don't expect them to go on. So I think that could definitely happen here. But I'm just going based on my gut. Davey 6 doesn't get farther.
I think if, like you just said, if Davey wins at individual immunity, I think you can swap Nick and Davey. So Nick 6, Davey wins. Mm-hmm. My only thing is like Mike's like playing this very analytically. He thinks he could crush Allison. From what we just predicted, that wouldn't be the case. But you either like you make these final 3 deals thinking you can beat someone, or just thinking I got to get to the final 3 and that's it. Why do Mike and Angelina want to take Nick? That makes no sense to me.
I don't think they want to take Nick. I just think that now it's too late.
Yeah.
And I think that you can only get rid of Nick or Davey at 6. You can't get rid of both of them. And then the other person just has to win one challenge. That's all they have to do is win one challenge. Both of them have 1 immunity. And then you're in the final 4, and then you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I guess, you're right. I guess if I'm Mike and Angelina, I would way rather like double down on Kara, who, if Mike's going to talk about people not having done anything, why are you talking? Why you want to bring Nick? Bring Kara with you if that's like your argument, or bring Allison with you. So that's maybe they make a final 3 deal with them with one of them, but I don't know. Whose idea was it to bring that up? Was it Angelina who brought it up on that reward? It might have been Nick, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't know. But it's just odd to me that Nick is the one they're clinging to, because I think if I'm Kara or Allison and Mike and Angelina come up to me, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
I agree.
I don't know. But yeah, I think Davies in a tough spot. I think everybody likes him.
Yeah, which I think makes it really hard to get past this first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this fire making thing really screwed.
Yeah, the fire making challenge really blows it wide open. So
yeah, so I guess that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
So that's it. We both have Nick Wilson as our projected winner of Survivor David versus Goliath. He would obviously be a really good story. Kara would make for an amazing conspiracy theory. Mm-hmm. Mike would make for a interesting winner. Angelina would blow Survivor open, and I think Allison would be like your Michelle. I think people would be like, "What?" But okay with it because they like her.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I agree. I think that Nick's going to be your winner, though. I think that's what's going to end up happening here. Where
did it fall when you in your chart? How many people ended up prioritizing Nick? I didn't write mine down.
Nick was only first once. I'm sorry, twice. I had him with Elizabeth and Mike. Those are the only two that I had Nick won because you convinced me of the Elizabeth thing. Maybe John, but I always had Nick as people's 2 or 3, except for Gabby had him lower, and Angelina had him lower, and that was it. Otherwise, I always had him as a 2 or 3.
Okay. The 2 or 3 is still pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if Davey's the one he's number 2 too.
Just get one person out.
So as much as it would be really cool to have a Nick Davey Allison or a Nick Davey Kara final 3, I don't think we're gonna get there. I would like that though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. Those are our predictions for Survivor. I almost said Survivor Ghost Island. Wow. Survivor David versus Goliath finale.
There you go.
Trying to think what else. Yeah, what else we got to cover, but that's about it.
That's it. I think we're good.
I know. I think we are. I guess I can wrap us up.
Wrap us up.
I'll wrap us up. So we will definitely, we will not be recapping after the episode on Wednesday because I'm going to say this, we are going to be at the finale and we're actually going to be there. We're going to be in the seats with the people. So I don't know where our seats are. Probably front row next in between Boston Rob and Cochran. So definitely keep an eye out for us. We'll wear really bright clothing so you can see us on TV. And I just last night made an Instagram account for us. So hit us with a follow. We are going to be Instagram living. I haven't told Phil yet. We're going to have so much fun in between commercial breaks and just posting a lot of stuff. So follow us on Instagram. We won't be posting too much on it, but it's just kind of fun. And we're about to have a really cool week and hopefully hang out with a bunch of survivors. So we want to share that with you guys. So as a result of that, we will not be able to recap the episode on Wednesday because we are going to be there. So we're going to try to get cast. We're going to try to hang out with people. It's going to be super awesome. So we'll probably do Thursday because we'll be together, but we'll see how we're feeling. We both have flights Thursday afternoon. TBD on when we'll recap, but we'll make sure we do it really quickly, as soon as the season ends. As soon as we can. Yeah, we're going to do it when we can because we're hoping to have a very busy off season. We're going to do a Q&A podcast for anyone who's a $5 patron and up, and we are going to do a retrospective podcast on anyone who is a $10 patron and up. So make sure to be a patron of our podcast. Even though we're about to enter the off season, what we are offering our $20 patrons is still very relevant in the off season. So any dollar amount you want, $1, $20, all of your money, we would appreciate it. We have some really cool stuff coming up. We have some really good questions submitted for our Q&A podcast. If you guys have any more in mind, shoot them our way. Tweet at us at Survivor Specialist, post on our Facebook, send us an email, DM us on Insta, whatever you want to do, however you want to contact us. We're not making a Snapchat. That's I'm going to draw the line on that one. So yeah, send us your questions. Send us any retrospective ideas you guys have and become a patron. So we'll try to we might do our Q&A podcast on Tuesday. That's TBD, but we're both entering a Christmas break. So we have a lot of free time. So yeah, we'll be back sometime soon with our recap of the Survivor David vs. Goliath finale. This season has been so fun. I have loved it. It has been so awesome to finally podcast during a good season. Sorry for the other seasons that we've been watching. So yeah, we'll be back. Did I miss anything? Oh, and hit subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, do that too.
Do
Bye.
it.